The XPT, product of our best technology from the 1980s, providing a fast and efficient class of transport and taking us towards the year 2000. Railways have played a significant role in the history of transportation in Australia, and since 1947, Film Australia has produced many fine films about Australian railways, and this video contains most of them. Introducing the films are some of the men and women who have helped make our railways what they are today. Fine writers like Ron Preston and Patsy Adam-Smith, not to mention, of course, the legendary engineman Jack Sparks, who regularly drove one of our most famous steam engines, the 3801. 3801 is now being completely restored to steam for our 1988 celebrations. Every few years, Film Australia produces films which cover the current activities of our various systems. The first film, made in 1979, is called, appropriately enough, The Railway.
My family were railway people, and we lived beside the tracks all our lives. My father was a fettler, and he worked on the lines in the outback. My mother was a station mistress at small sidings. Your house was right there. At nights, you'd hear the trains come rumbling by and then fading and wailing off into the distance. Since then, I've spent a great deal of my life searching out the folklore and history of railways and railway men. I can still hear the sound of those wheels, and to me, it's the whole of Australia's foundation. The railway had its beginnings in Australia when the first steam locomotive ran in 1854 between Melbourne and its port, Sandridge. From this small beginning, railways spread out rapidly from the capital cities to serve the needs of the growing colonies. There have been some changes since those early days. The Prospector runs between Perth and Kalgoorlie in Western Australia. It's one of Australia's fastest and most modern trains. In 1912, work was begun on the Transcontinental Railway. This linked the east with the west and fulfilled one of the conditions upon which Western Australia joined the Commonwealth. It was a terrific achievement. 1,400 kilometres without a stream of water, without a town or a village. All supplies, everything had to be brought in along the new line. For 6 days a week, the navvies built a mile of railway every day. In recent years, there's been a new growth in railway construction. The Commonwealth, through Australian National Railways, is building a new line to Alice Springs in the heart of the continent. The old line used to be subject to disruption for weeks at a time by the floods which sweep across the desert every few years. The new line has been rerouted to avoid these problems. Being laid on concrete sleepers, the new line will require very little maintenance. The rails are being welded into continuous lengths of up to 80 kilometers. In the early days of railway construction in Australia, the different states just would not agree on one standard gauge. The width of track varied from state to state.
Where's it going? Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Perth.
Names he's only heard of. Foreign lands beyond the little island of his state. How can he ever see them? How can he ever know his country? Understand the men who make it? How locked up in his little island state can he ever share in this, our Commonwealth? Somewhere across a sea of borders are men and women in their island states, but try and go to see them.
Albury, all change!
What's the hold?
Wake the children.
Grab the luggage. Find the ticket.
Get a porter.
We're changing trains.
We're changing gauge. This is the border. This is the barrier between the states.
I want to stay in this train.
But we can't, dear.
Why?
Because we have to change into another one.
Why?
Because this is as far as this one goes.
Why?
Because it wants a rest. I don't know. Come on.
Look in the other suitcase.
No, they won't be in a suitcase. Always keep them in this pocket.
1,000 passengers every day. 4,000 tons of freight every week. Men, women, children, babies, papers, parcels, pears, potatoes, plows, tractors, cultivators, turkeys, ducks, onions, apples, fowls, chickens, sheep and cattle, bulls, cows, iron, steel, timber, coal, and circuses.
The misunderstandings and pig-headedness that saddled Australia with 3 different rail gauges have left modern generations with problems that still bedevil rail transport in this country. These problems have resulted in some bizarre solutions. In the early 50s, a pickerback train was used briefly between Lee Creek and Port Augusta in South Australia.
Of the new line. Standard gauge flat-top trucks were laid with 3 feet 6 inches track, permitting the entire narrow gauge train to travel to its destination without unloading.
Since those days, the states and the Commonwealth have got together. The standard gauge has been extended. It's now possible to travel from one side of the continent to the other without changing trains. In the cities, too, railway systems are being updated. When our first railways were built back in the horse and buggy days, they helped to shape the growth of our cities. Now they're proving themselves one of the most efficient and non-polluting ways of moving large numbers of people. New underground railways are going ahead in both Melbourne and Sydney, bypassing the traffic jams, tunnelling deep underground beneath the heart of the city. It's not only city people who benefit from rail. In far-off Normanton, in the Gulf of Carpentaria country of northern Queensland, a small line was built back in 1893. It only runs about 150 kilometres to a little town called Croydon, where gold was discovered. The gold ran out almost as the line reached Croydon, and that's where the line stopped. But a rail car still provides a weekly service to these small, isolated communities. It's a 1921 vintage AEC motor. And basically, it's a one-man band. The man, the driver, he's also the station master at Normanton. He's district engineer, he's traffic inspector. He sells you the ticket, if you're one of the extraordinarily rare number of people who have ever travelled on it. He tells you to get on board, and then he hops on and he calls out, "Are you okay?" And off you go. He chugs from Normanton to Croydon once a week on a Tuesday. On a Wednesday, he chugs back. You may say it goes from nowhere to nowhere. Service to the community is important, but the economic backbone of the railway is express freight. This is where its future lies. Here, too, new technology is being applied to improve the efficiency of railway operations. At the Melbourne Freight Yard's hump, computers help sort the wagons according to their different destinations. Automatic retarders slow down the heavier wagons to control their speed. With the prospect of energy shortages, railways are coming into their own. When it comes to long-haul bulk freight, rail really has the advantage. There's the great haulage of ore, the great distances, the vast distances in this continent. There's no road haulage that can take this. That's a railway's job. There are some amazing trains in Australia. Everyone knows about the giant iron ore trains in the northwest, but not everyone knows that the trains serving the coalfields of central Queensland are just as impressive. They're over 1.5 kilometres long. Each has an all-up weight of 10,500 tonnes. They're made up of 148 wagons, hauled by 6 locomotives, 3 at the front of the train and 3 more in the middle. They're all controlled by the one driver via a radio-controlled unit in the centre of the train. The Indian Pacific spans the nation, from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific. It's one of the epic passenger train journeys of the world, an experience of a lifetime. To just sit back and be waited on in the old-fashioned way and watch a whole continent unfold outside your window. Railway men and women are the salt of the earth. My family were railway people. We heard the train whistle all our lives, it seemed. You'd hear this long wail coming, and it was a tie. It was a binding thing that bound you to other people in a very lonely, wide land. I can't hear a railway whistle without thinking of running away from home. They say it's only boys who thought that. But I think anyone who grew up within sound of that whistle, they always thought of faraway places. And of course, there was the smell. there was this incredible thing, this combination of coal and smoke. It tattooed itself onto the olfactory nerve of, I think, every Australian over the age of 30. Even if they're nowhere near a steam train. And somehow, if there's the slight smell of coal smoke in the air, they only have to get a whiff. Just the tang of the smoke. And it's a nostalgic shunt back to yesterday.
Now, the British train mystery trip is about to depart. We remind you that there is a refreshment kiosk in the middle of the train. We hope you enjoy your trip today on our vintage steam train. Now, all aboard, please. The train is due to depart. All aboard, please.
Everything's got to change. The romantics would like to see the steam engine come back. You can't go back. Nobody goes back. In the old days, it was steam, then diesel power and electrification. Tomorrow, who knows? One thing's for sure. The railway will be around for a few years yet. There's a lot of new thoughts, there's a lot of new ideas, a whole new tradition in the making.
Well, I said you can't go back, but it's nice to go back. And this is one way you can do it very pleasantly. There's this little train puffing Billy. It wasn't done for tourists. It's full of tourists nowadays because people come from all over the world to it, but it was really part of this whole mountainous area where the Well, the drivers knew the locals. Indeed, they knew what the locals worked at because they'd hop out of the engine sometimes and pull the potatoes out of the paddocks. But the people knew the drivers, knew the guards. They'd leave scones out for them. So let's go back. Let's go back because it's pleasant to go back and look at shades of Puffing Billy.
It will need a washout.
Now this train will be here for 10 minutes. This train will be departing in 10 minutes.
All aboard. Hurry on, please.
This film you're going to see now, Journey of a Nation, is also about trains, but this subject is trains in society and them making a useful contribution and not being inefficient. You see, the problem was in the 40s and before, the gauges of Australia, different states, were all different. The result was if you wanted to come from New South Wales to Victoria, you had to get out of the train into another train, another gauge, to another gauge in Western Australia, another gauge in Queensland, and so on. This inefficiency, of course, was highlighted in the war. You had to move a division of troops up from, say, Victoria to New South Wales. They had to all get off the train at Albury and get onto another one. So we made the film Journey of a Nation, and it went out theatrically throughout Australia. It was quite well received, fortunately, and it got good notices. In fact, it was Film of the Week, which helped the Transport Department considerably to get the money they needed to correct the position. So today, you can go from, say, Sydney to Perth in one train. So here it is, Journey of a Nation.
he's only heard of. Foreign lands beyond the little island of his state. How can he ever see them? How can he ever know his country? Understand the men who make it? How can he ever see the wharfies lumping cargo on ships from Plymouth, Amsterdam and Kiel? Or hear the tales of sailors who'll catch him shoulder high to point the channel for wallowing tankers rolling into port? How can he ever see them pour the molten pig iron, the sweating men and dancing sparks? See them shoveling, spinning, blasting white-hot steel? How can he ever stand on tiptoe in the cities, searching for friends among the hurrying faces? How locked up in his little island state can he ever share in this our Commonwealth? Somewhere across a sea of borders are men and women in their island states. He can write them a letter. That's simple. The states are only finger posts to mail.
Melbourne, Burke, Darwin, Cairns, Hobart, Hilton, Yakandanda, Manly, Coburg.
Or call them by phone. That's simple too. There's no restriction on the wires. They hop the borders. Write to them or call them by phone. He can do that quickly and easily. But try and go to see them.
Albury all change!
What's the hold?
Wake the children.
Grab the luggage. Find the ticket.
Get a porter.
We're changing trains.
We're changing gauge. This is the border. This is the barrier between the states.
They won't be in your purse. I always keep them in this pocket.
Tried looking in your overcoats.
They won't be in my overcoat. I always keep them in this pocket.
I won't stay in this train.
But we can't, dear.
Why?
Because we have to change into another one.
Why?
Because this is as far as this one goes.
Why?
Because it wants a rest. I don't know. Come on.
Look in the other suitcase.
No, they won't be in a suitcase. I always keep them in this pocket.
1,000 passengers every day. 4,000 tons of freight every week. Men, women, children, babies, papers, parcels, pears, potatoes, plows, tractors, cultivators, turkeys, ducks, onions, apples, fowls, chickens, sheep and cattle, bulls, cows, iron, steel, timber, coal, and circuses. Changing carriages, changing trucks, wasting manpower, wasting time. The rails of the clown in this circus ring, tumbling, juggling, dropping the freight, but we're not laughing. Not when Australia's fate is in the balance. Just turn back to 42. Remember? A division of men and equipment bundled into anything on wheels crawled across the flat, bare belly of Australia. Change of gauge clogged up their effort. But all the time, the Japs were coming closer. Look at the map. The Japs did. They saw the broken gauge between the states and laughed at the hopeless bottlenecks. Laughed at the line shrunk to 3 feet 6 in the west, but suddenly stopped and changed to 4 feet 8.5 to cross the Nullarbor. And then stopped again and spread out wider to 5 feet 3 across Victoria. And stopped again and changed back to the standard in New South Wales, 4 feet 8.5. Then up to Queensland and change again. Back to 3 feet 6. 6 different gauges, 100 different engines, 1,000 different trucks. Look ahead, break down the barriers, throw a single line of steel about Australia, climbing Barkly Tableland, joining Darwin to the south. Push up the horizon, reach out to the lonely men who fight the endless distance of the inland.
Some of us have to drove our cattle up to 1,000 miles to get to a railhead. Long droves like that cost real money, and a lot of cattle are lost in the wild stretches through the centre. By the time they get to the train, they're so poor it takes a year to get the muscle off and put on some fat. The way it is now, the cattle have to be about 6 years old to stand the long drove. If we had the rail, we could market them at 3 years and double our turnover. Some people say aeroplanes will soon be doing the job. They forget the city markets use 1,000 head a week, and that's a lot of passengers, especially when they're 2,000-pound four-footed bulls. And not only cattle. What about the 120,000 sheep that feed the cities every week? A rail could bring them down, more of them and in better condition. Without a rail, you can't lift your sheep away when a drought strikes. In '26, a drought came down on the Midwest of Queensland and took 4.5 million of them. Perished, buried in dust and sand. 4.5 million of them. That's a lot of sheep. But it's not only cattle and sheep. What about the grower in the West?
If we had a direct rail, Western Australia could become the California of Australia. Instead of having to pick our fruit and vegetables half green the way we do now, we could pick them ripe at their best and rail them to the east in refrigerated cars on fast trains. They could cross Australia from Perth to Sydney in about 4.5 days.
Today, Australian railways carry a yearly load of 525 million passengers and 39 million tons of freight. Essential to Australia's defence program is coordination of railways. In America, the United States Chief of Transport said,
"In the European theaters of operations, railways contributed to victory more than any other means of transport. One of the first jobs after the conquest of France was the rehabilitation of railway systems. Thousands of locomotives and freight cars were shipped to the continent. By VE Day, railways had carried more operational freight than the highways."
Broken by 6 different gauges, Australian railways only gave the war a fraction of its great potential. Munitions, machines, soldiers, civilians jammed the break of gauge points. Hopeless bottlenecks with only one solution: standardize. Standardize, standardize. Draw up the blueprints, put the plans into action. From Perth to Darwin on a standard gauge. Map the deserts, span the rivers, fill the swamps, tunnel the mountains, break the barriers between the states. Clear the forests, fell the ironbarks, haul the timber, cut the 12 million wooden sleepers. And standardize, modernize the carriages, the axle box, the engines, the brake shoes, the brake heads, the ferrules and the couplers, the roll steel wheels. It going? Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Perth. Jump aboard, boy. Boy from the outback. You're leaving a state and seeing a nation. Ride easy now. Ride easy on the rail, the one long rail. This is the union of the states. This is the journey of a nation.
This is Sydney's signal box. It was commissioned in 1979 at a cost of some $20 million. It's the nerve centre of the metropolitan suburban area, and it replaces some 4 older Powerwork signal boxes. Each day there are normally 6 to 8 area controllers on duty, controlling from Central to the Redfern area. The track diagram indicates the position of each train within the signal box control area. Every train is identified by a special number, which is compared to the information contained within the computer. This tape contains the timetable information for each day. The computer printout displays the sequence of events. This train passed Central at 1:25 p.m. and was 2 minutes late. Its number was H242. In the case of computer failure, a backup unit automatically takes over. The film On Time you're about to view depicts an early signal box in Melbourne in the 1950s.
Trains. Remember your own first model train? Whether it was a homemade affair or manufactured to scale with an elaborate layout of tracks, signals, tunnels, stations and points didn't matter. It had all the fascination of a railway, and no one ever seems to grow out of playing trains. But it's playing with trains on the grand scale at Melbourne's Flinders Street Station, one of the busiest in the world. With next door Princes Bridge Station, Flinders Street handles almost all of Melbourne's suburban traffic. Travellers don't often see the men who work this system of safety, efficiency, speed. Hundreds of trains move to timetables, and if, as seldom happens, the timetable is thrown out, the controller gives orders to the signal boxes, where men turn his words to point and signal movements. And every one of these movements brings trains through, brings the work-going crowds of Melbourne to their city. They're making for offices, warehouses, shops, schools. Everyone thinking of the clock, of beating the bell, the time book, the Bundy. Well, practically everyone. But time is everything for the men who move the trains. 4 signal boxes control Flinders Street's tracks. There are 265 levers in the largest box in the Southern Hemisphere, Flinders Street A. They're making the road for the train. Black lever to set the points, blue to lock, red to set the signal.
Willie up north into 8.
Willie up north is the code for the Williamstown train through Melbourne. A bell warns the next box and, getting ready to take the train, the box returns the signal. The recorder writes in ink the time every train arrives or leaves. In electrically controlled Box D, the levers are small, easier to handle, but they do the same job. Make the roads and set the signals that mean speed and, above all, safety.
Reza away. Rosanna up into 16. D-Box calling the collie shunters.
Yes, D-Box.
Any sign of the 10:30, Doc?
Coming up now, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Signalmen know by heart the timetables of every line, and they're ready for any change, special trains or cancellations. In Box D, the roads show on a plot on the wall, and in his soundproof room, the controller plots all the trains on a graph. He directs traffic from point to point, saving money, saving power, saving time.
I have a relief crew for the Up Eastern goods to Powerhouse. Where does he relieve?
Hold the crew at yours. The train should arrive 11 a.m. Finish, B-Box.
8 and 9 platform speaking. The 10:43 dock train has not arrived.
From the 10:43 a.m. Sandringham by the 10:45 a.m. arrival Explorers Meadows. Finished 8 and 9.
When the business rush is over, goods trains pass through on the freer rails. The fast diesel from Wonthaggi swings in with passengers for the city. Another goods goes down through the station to Port Melbourne, going down to collect cargo from overseas ships. The electric parcels vans move out on the suburban runs, travelling while the lines are clear so that their stops to load and unload won't delay passenger services. The goods for Maryvale carrying timber for paper pulp is moving out past A-Box, where the men are getting ready for the day's next peak, the evening rush hour. In the yards, the trains are tested, ready. Flinders Street's 100,000 is on the move again. Not quite as springy in the step as they were in the morning, but still moving to time.
Back in the early 1960s, a group of people dedicated to steam decided to form a non-profit-making community organisation, which we call the New South Wales Rail Transport Museum. This museum, dedicated to the preservation of steam, was located for many years in Enfield, the home of steam locomotion in Sydney. However, in 1974, it was found necessary to move to a new location, and that brought us here, 80 kilometres south to Thirlmere, on the original Great Southern Railway line. Talking of steam, the man who can tell you much more about that than I is our resident maintenance engineer, Jim Martin.
This machinery I've just been examining here is what converts the pressure of the boiler into mechanical activity as far as the locomotive is concerned. And if you come with me up into the cab, we'll show you what the controls are that actually control that operation down there. Those controls we spoke of earlier on are contained in this cabin. The first thing we should look at is how to put water into the boiler. And you need two things for that. You need steam, which is this wheel here, and water, which is across over here. Turn your water on, and that starts the injector, which will run the water into the boiler, and the level of that water is shown in this glass here. Of course, you need coal. And that's the controls on the actual boiler itself. For the locomotive, the actual valves and pistons, then the admission of steam, is this, which is the regulator. That's closed at the moment. The wider you go with it, of course, the more steam you're putting into the valves and cylinders, and the more powerful the locomotive is. To control the steam once it's there, for forwards and backwards, is this control here. Right back, of course, is back gear. Right forward is fore gear. These gauges show you what the locomotive's doing. This one here is the steam gauge. 160 pound this thing works at, so the needle would normally be up and down there when it's running. This one here's for the Westinghouse brake. It's got two needles in there, a black one and a red one. The red one shows you what the main reservoir's got, that the air compressor pumps into, and the black one shows you what the train pipe has got in it. That's the pipe that runs for the entire length of the train. This gauge here is a drifting gauge, which as its name suggests is only for drifting, you've got to keep that central when the locomotive is drifting by opening this regulator here to let a little bit of steam into the valves and pistons and keep that gauge as close to zero as you can. That helps for efficient lubrication and things like that when the locomotive is drifting and not working properly. Now, to lubricate all those bits and pieces is what this thing up here is for. This is a sight feed lubricator. It's full of oil, and the oil's displaced by steam and carried down pipes to the front of the engine where it goes into the valves and pistons. Each one of these controls a separate thing. This one's the left cylinder, left valve and so on. These hand wheels here control the rate at which the oil is admitted to those bits of machinery. This one on this side is for the Westinghouse air pump. It's a steam-driven pump, a reciprocating pump that supplies the air for this gauge here earlier on that I told you about. And it's lubricated through this side here. This is your actual Westinghouse air brake control itself. That's in the running position there. That's where the handle normally is when the train's rolling along. To make an application, the handle's brought round to about there, and the train pipe pressure is reduced, and then the handle's returned to that position until you want to actually release the brakes or put them on harder. The other controls here are these big handles down here, which are for cleaning the fire. They control the grates that the fire sits on. That mechanism actually rocks the grates to let the ash out of the fire because you get an accumulation of ash naturally with the coal. This lever here is for the cylinder cocks at the front. That's very important, that one. With the steam engine you get steam condensing and steam turns to water, and water's not compressible. So the cylinder cocks allow any water that accumulates in the valves and pistons to escape, and that controls it there. That's the driver's control on it. All these little hand wheels and things control various accessories. This one's the main valve for the lubricator that I spoke of earlier on. This little bloke up here is for the turbo generator, which is an electricity supply for the locomotive. Works the headlights, the marker lights, the cab lights inside the cab. It's a little steam-driven generator. The whistle, of course, this cable up here is what controls the whistle. Other than that, there's very little else. These two little cocks here are just a safety precaution for this main gauge glass here. Should that glass break, you've got no idea what your water level is. That's what these do. You're supposed to be able to turn these on and let a little bit of water or steam out, and so be able to judge what your water's doing until you can repair the glass. Now, we've had a bit of a look at steam. From here we should go to diesel. Now, this locomotive behind me is one of 5 diesel locomotives that we've got here in the museum. But to show a bit of diesel, we'll go over to the narrow gauge Commonwealth Railways that used to run up to Alice Springs and have a look at the film The Garn to Alice.
Dad was a rough rider back in the 30s. I guess we just followed in his footsteps. We try to keep in shape by working out at home, but it's nothing like competing in big rodeos, like the one we're heading off to in Alice Springs. It's a long trip.
She's not getting any stronger. Just get on the gas while you can. Ride it right across our land. She will never fail you. She takes you to the heart of Australia.
I believe. Yeah, I guess we better get a move on if we're going to get her on this game. Yeah. Good day, mate.
Yes, mate. Can I help you?
2 blokes in a car from Magee to Alice Springs.
Hold up.
Have your attention, please, ladies and gentlemen. I'm announcing the third and final sitting of breakfast. Would all those passengers holding number 3 sitting call cards kindly make their way to the diners? The third and final sitting is about to commence. Third and final sitting of breakfast. Thank you.
Hey, Craig. You top of the Outer Buckler for a while?
The lines are all clear ahead.
Probably change through to Mount Dutton.
You've got clearance through to Mount Dutton, okay?
Right, mate, good.
The wild camels you see along the way are descendants from the old camel trains that used to carry supplies up north. Stockmen round them up and send them away to overseas camel breeders and zoos.
Took a long time, well, they finally made it through. As the years roll by, they just kept on working. They made it to the Alice, 1929. Had a lot of worries in your time, like waiting for the camels to get off the line. People would criticize you, though you know they really needed you. They say Gan country was the land of plenty of time and wait ahead.
Oh, I
It's like getting down the side of a ship, isn't it?
And how long do we stay?
About 10 minutes, sir.
Oh, about 10 minutes.
How to? Yeah.
Well, I've taken mine. I can go back. Thank you very much.
Central Control, Port Augusta here. What time you got at Redinga?
We're from Rodinga 51.
Right,
36.
yeah.
1000.
Yeah.
And here at 10:55.
Just hang on for a clearance to go ahead. We've got a maintenance crew on the line up there ahead of you. Okay, you and Inga, your line's cleared. Oh, what's your ETA for Alice?
Arrived Alice Springs, 12:30, 100 hours.
Thanks very much.
Pleasure, sir. Pleasure. Pleasure. Ready? Watch this step. Watch this step, careful. Watch this step, cowboy.
Everybody know.
Eight seconds is the limit. He's going to ride that bull for 8 seconds to get the prize money. Bill Willoughby.
Yeah.
Ready, pulls the Stetson down. Says, righto, let it go. Here we go.
And you really have to hate that bull for those few moments if you're going to stay on top of him. And you know that if he throws you down before that 8-second hooter, that's the end of your chances.
When the Great Northern Railway was opened, the original Newcastle terminus was about 1 kilometre from here. It proved inconvenient to the locals who didn't enjoy the trek out of town, so pressure was brought about to move the line into Newcastle in 1858 and the present station was built. The original railway workshops in Newcastle were opened at Honeysuckle Point in 1885, and this bell was the means of starting and stopping the works in the days before they had electric sirens and buzzers. When I had to wind up activities there in 1978, we salvaged the bell, and when Newcastle Station was restored, it was incorporated into the building as a reminder of the days when trains were started by ringing a bell. This photograph shows some of the very early coal trains arriving in Newcastle Yard. On the banks of the Hunter River immediately opposite the station, the tall masted sailing ships would arrive and the coal would be loaded from these four-wheel hoppers into them. Here at Port Waratah, we have preserved an example of the next stage of coal hopper development. These non-air coal hoppers, so called because they had no continuous air brakes, numbered some 13,000 for running over both the government and the private railways to bring the coal down to the wharves. However, coal train development has continued, and bigger and longer trains are very much the order of the day. Up till now we've been looking at Newcastle and the coal trains, which are very much the bread and butter of the railways of the district. But the common denominator of all railways is the rails and the wheels that run on them. Here then is all manner of trains, which takes you all over Australia and shows you all manner of trains.
Night, across the giant face of the continent, Australia's trains haul their ceaseless loads of people and produce. The Blue Mountains gorges rumble at the beat of their wheels. Tasmania's green plains echo with their passing. Spanning the brown outback of New South Wales, the Far West Express hurtles through a 90-mile straight. Threading town and distant town they go, through grazing land and gibber plain, down apple-loaded valleys, past scented hop kilns and tropical tobacco fields. The logging special, the Coonamble Mail, the Sunlander, the Inlander, the Overland, the GAN, Mildura Sunlight, Spirit of Progress, Westland, Australian, the Southern Aurora. They are names bringing travel, sunlight, and the dream of distance to all Australian minds. Trains that have helped to build a modern nation. There are many problems involved in running a network of railways that covers an entire continent. Australia is enormous. The mainland from east coast to west spans 2,500 miles. From south to north, 2,000 miles. Its area is roughly equal to the whole of Europe without Russia. In the early days, the different states could not agree on a common rail gauge. Each built up its own rail system independently, and so created the break of gauge problem. In the west, the Northern Territory, in Queensland, Tasmania, and in part of South Australia, a 3 feet 6-inch gauge was built. In Victoria and in another part of South Australia, 5 feet 3, while New South Wales decided on 4 feet 8.5. This is also used by the Commonwealth Railways for the Trans-Australia line, and it is the national gauge which will link all mainland capitals by 1967. A traveller today can board a train at Cairns on the Coral Sea in North Queensland and go on the various gauges of 5 states across to Perth on the Indian Ocean. This is the journey George Martin is making, a Queensland railwayman on a busman's holiday around a continent. 4,400 miles by rail in air-conditioned comfort. This is the first part of the route George Martin will take. From Cairns down the tropical north coast of Queensland, 1,000 miles to Brisbane, the state capital. Then on again, 600 miles down the coast of New South Wales to Sydney. From Sydney south to the Victorian border and on to Melbourne, another 600 miles.
This is a trip I've been planning for quite a time. Seeing Australia by train. There's a lot of this country I've never set eyes on. Flying's fine if you're in a hurry. But take those cane fields. From the air, you'd never know there were cane cutters working there. Going down to Brisbane, the Sunlander travels through the fertile coastal plain of Queensland. Further out west lies some of the best cattle country in Australia. There are places where they rail their cattle 1,000 miles to market. Brisbane City Hall. Brisbane's the 3rd largest city in Australia now. The Story Bridge on the Brisbane River. This is the principal port for Queensland. From Brisbane, you get a good overnight run down to Sydney on the Brisbane Limited. Now we're travelling on standard gauge track. By the time we cross the river at Grafton, we're well and truly in New South Wales. You see the special fruit trains around here. It's the heart of the banana country. As you go further south, you pass through vineyards and orange groves. When the dawn comes up, you're near the Hawkesbury River. A long tunnel through the sandstone. A climb through the bush. And the Brisbane Limited is pulling into Central Station, Sydney. This is a place that can't stop growing. Plenty of new buildings since I was here last time, but that harbour bridge still fascinates me. The bridge carries a tremendous load of traffic, road and rail. Nearly 2,000 suburban train services run in Sydney each day. They need them with the population over the 2 million mark. On its run down to Albury on the Murray River, the Daylight Express to Melbourne takes you through some of the richest grazing land in New South Wales. This was sheep country from the early days, and still is today, when we carry around 150 million sheep in Australia. At Albury, on the Victorian border, there's a change of locomotives and a change of crew. Then on across the Murray, and Victoria's famous express, the Spirit of Progress, is gliding through a 200-mile stretch of peaceful pastoral country before it pulls into Melbourne. Melbourne is the capital of Victoria, a prosperous city with a population approaching the 2 million mark. The city is the centre of the Victorian State Railway's 5,700-mile network.
The second stage of George Martin's journey will take him 480 miles across to Adelaide, then on to Port Pirie and westward across the Nullarbor Plain on the transcontinental standard gauge, 1,100 miles to Kalgoorlie. From there he will go on to Western Australian Railways another 400 miles, westward again to Perth, the state capital on the coast.
From Melbourne, I took the overland, the express run jointly by the Victorian and South Australian Railways to Adelaide. You pass vineyards, orchards, and some very colourful country in the course of this 480-mile run. When you wake up, you see the Murray River again at Murray Bridge. Before long, you're running down from Mount Lofty into Adelaide, the capital of South Australia. Adelaide is a well-planned, spacious city with a population of about 600,000 and is surrounded by a fine green belt. It's famous for its parks and gardens. From Adelaide, I took the Port Pirie Express. Port Pirie is the eastern terminus of the Trans-Australia line. You change over here from the Port Pirie Express to the Transcontinental. The Trans runs on the standard gauge and it's operated by the Commonwealth Railways. On its way to Kalgoorlie, the Trans makes an 1,100-mile journey across the Nullarbor Plain, the great treeless expanse that separates like an ocean the east of Australia from the west. One strait in the plain is 330 miles long, They say it's the longest stretch of straight rail in the world. There's not a drop of running water in the Nullarbor, so in the days of steam, water and fuel had to be freighted out to service the trains. There's no problem today, as Commonwealth Railways use only diesel-electric locomotives. When you're dining in air-conditioned comfort at a mile a minute, you forget that 100 years ago, the only trains here were the camel trains of the explorers, fumbling their way across the continent for the first time. Kalgoorlie is the western terminus of the Trans-Australia line. It's the biggest gold-producing centre in Australia. A terrific gold rush started here back in 1893, when Patrick Hannon discovered the famous Golden Mile. But the only gold I saw was the gold of the wheat paddocks, as the Westland crossed the wheat belt of Western Australia on the last lap of my journey to Perth. You see the occasional steam train on country services, but Australian railways are changing over fast to diesel and electric power, and they account for 2/3 of all our train mileages today. They certainly made my journey a pleasant one.
Right on time, the Westland draws up at the platform. And with a 4,400-mile journey behind him, George Martin arrives in Perth, the capital of Western Australia. Perth is a busy, growing place with a population of 420,000, beautifully situated on the Swan River. For the size of its population, Australia has a large rolling stock industry. It is well capable of meeting the needs of the 7 railway systems, 6 state and 1 Commonwealth, and of exporting overseas too. Whilst the rolling stock industry is spread over all states, the main concentration is in New South Wales, close to Australia's largest steel industry. Our need for carriages and wagons is met by building within the various railway workshops or by private manufacturers. Occasionally, however, when tender prices are favourable or when Australian industry cannot quote early delivery, contracts have been let overseas. Few steam locomotives have been built in Australia in recent years, but there has been a big demand for diesel locomotives of various types, which has been met by Australian locomotive manufacturers. Considerable quantities of rolling stock of various types, including diesel locomotives and rail cars, have been exported or sent overseas under the Colombo Plan. Our workshops must set a high standard of design and workmanship, for their products have to stand up to arduous and widely varying demands all over the continent. Alice Springs, for example, in the very centre of Australia, relies for most of its supplies on the Central Australia line, run by Commonwealth Railways. The Ghan is the train's name, commemorating the hardy Afghan traders who used to supply the pioneers. In the heart of the McDonnell Ranges, the Alice stands for the outback to the average Australian. Yet it is the main crossroads of all Northern Territory traffic movements. Alice Springs is an important transshipment center. Fresh fruit, meat, vegetables and other perishable goods coming by rail from the south are transferred in refrigerated containers to road transport units. In this way, road and rail combine to bring comfortable living conditions to the people of the inland. Coming into the goods yards at Alice Springs, you will see consignments of uranium ore from Tennant's Creek, as well as mica, wolfram, and other mineral products essential to the Australian economy. Copper ore from the Pico mines, too. Alice Springs is the northern terminal of the Central Australia line. The southern terminal is Port Augusta in South Australia. Here, the famous tea and sugar train loads its 4,000 loaves of bread, its 6 tons of groceries, and 5 tons of meat. The train is the village store, the bank, and the health centre for the rail workers and others living along the 1,100-mile track between Port Augusta and Kalgoorlie. The tea and sugar makes 50 stops on its weekly run, and for the housewives at Pimba, it's a welcome visitor. For besides household needs, it brings a welfare car with a doctor and nurse, polio immunization, and chest X-ray surveys. When the payroll for the rail workers is on board, there's always the risk of a train robbery. In the outback, the children's health is an important matter. And in the western districts of New South Wales, the state railways operate 3 mobile baby health clinics. The clinic cars move on a regular schedule around the more distant country areas, and the nursing sister in charge has living quarters on board. As well as running the baby health clinic, she also gives lessons in mothercraft to girls. For everyone making a living from the land, Australia's railways provide some form of service, bringing them machinery and equipment and hauling their produce to market and to seaport. 90% of Australia's wheat crop is moved by rail. From West Australia's wheat belt, special freighters bring the grain down to Fremantle for shipment. From the cane lands of Queensland, trains of special hopper trucks carry raw sugar to the ports of Mackay, Bundaberg and Lucinda. In all parts of the country, and especially in remote areas like Nyngan in western New South Wales, railways have always been the backbone of the communications system. Thanks to new fast country services, the tonnages of goods and livestock carried in New South Wales have been increasing by 1 million tonnes a year. The country station master today has to be a businessman as well as an expert organizer.
Nyngan, number 43 diesel arrived okay at 10:27.
Among the 800 local freight trains running each day in New South Wales, stock trains are among the most important. The rails that opened up Australia's interior a century ago are still helping in the stocking and closer settlement of new areas. For graziers in drought-stricken areas, special low rates are charged for carrying animals for restocking their properties. In dry times, the trains also carry stock many hundreds of miles to emergency feed supplies. Australia's great distances affect the industrialist as well as the grazier. Spreading in giant strides across the continent, industry is continually creating special transport needs. To carry tin plate from the steel mills at Port Kembla to the canning factories in Victoria, a special train, the Tin Plate Express, is provided. To cope with heavy and outsize industrial equipment, the railways are ready with specially designed rolling stock. A 130-ton transformer ordered from overseas will produce additional power for industry. A rail link of key importance to industry is the line from Broken Hill in New South Wales to Port Pirie in South Australia. Special fast freights carry mineral ore down to the smelting works. Plans are going ahead for the standardization of this line. Coal is the most important single item of freight for Australian railways. At the open cut mine at Lee Creek on the Central Australia line, a radio telephone system connects the locomotive and the brake van of the coal trains to Telford Station.
Are you receiving?
Telford receiving, GM20, over.
GM20 to Telford. We have completed loading and we are leaving the mine now. We'll be up there at 4 o'clock. Over.
Telford Station to GM20, message received, number 2 road clear, over and out.
HRC 104 to GM20. You have 60 pounds of air. Over.
GM20 received. Over and out.
The 5,500-ton train is the heaviest in Australia. From Lee Creek, the coal goes direct to the power station at Curlew, Port Augusta, to generate electricity for the South Australian network. Yallourn, in the Latrobe Valley, Victoria, is the site of Australia's largest known brown coal deposit. At the present rate of consumption, there is enough coal here to supply the State Electricity Commission, which operates the open cut, with fuel for the next 4,000 years. At every stage, handling of the coal is mechanized to the highest degree. $13 million tons of coal are produced each year for the Commission's powerhouses and for industry in Melbourne, 87 miles away. With equal ease, railways handle fuel for powerhouse and logs for paper mill. From the great eucalypt forests of Tasmania, the logging specials rumble down the peaceful Derwent Valley to feed the newsprint mills at Boyer. On the remote, rainy west coast of the island, another important industry, the Mount Lyell Mining Company, operates its own rack railway. The train carries its load of copper down the wild King River Gorge to the sea at Regatta Point for export. Clambering undaunted over steep gradients, the little narrow-gauge train has never heard of the great flat outback. At Maree, it could relax and ride pickerback on a standard-gauge flat-top wagon. The Central Australia Railway is standard gauge from Port Augusta to Maree, and from there up to Alice Springs is 3 feet 6 gauge. The Commonwealth Railways adopt the unusual pickerback practice of carrying narrow gauge wagons on top of standard gauge wagons from Port Augusta to Maree. From there to Alice Springs, the wagons can run on the 3 feet 6 line. Pickerbacking originated, they say, in the American Civil War, when Army vehicles were railed to the battlefront on flat cars. Road freighters in Australia can cross the Nullarbor Plain by rail from Port Augusta to Kalgoorlie. a big saving on tyres, and increasing profits for the railways too. Australia makes some 200,000 motor vehicles every year and assembles 100,000 more. The Transfreight assists this industry by shipping car bodies to Western Australia for completion. Leapfrogging across the Nullarbor at express speed saves truck drivers from an arduous 1,100-mile stretch at the wheel. When the Transfreight pulls into Kalgoorlie, the bodies are transferred from standard gauge to narrow gauge. Before long, when the standard gauge track to Perth is completed, picker backing and transshipment will not be necessary. With a network of 26,000 miles of rails spanning the continent, track maintenance is a major task. In remote areas, manpower is difficult to obtain, and the mechanization of track gangs is going ahead fast. The Jackson track maintainer settles ballast and saves back-breaking work. Traveling through the various states, a visitor will find a variety of modern passenger services. Diesel rail cars are widely used by all the Australian railway systems. In South Australia, they're used on suburban runs. They are nicknamed Red Hens. Bluebirds, air-conditioned rail cars manufactured in South Australia, operate between Adelaide and country centres. A modified version of the famous Bud car, a self-propelled diesel rail car, is made under licence in Australia and used in New South Wales and in South Australia. There it provides a fast link between Port Pirie, Port Augusta and the Woomera Rocket Range. The Sydney-Newcastle Express is another train that is attracting travellers back to the rails. In Sydney, during the morning peak hour, 330 trains come into the central electric stations. These trains carry nearly 500,000 passengers every working day. The City Circle is Australia's only underground railway. It is a loop line linking 6 stations and making it possible to achieve a speedy turnaround for city-bound trains. On the City Circle's 6-mile electrified track, trains travel around the loop every 2 minutes during peak periods. At other times, the average interval between trains is 6 minutes. Sydney's electric network stretches out to the furthest suburbs. The system has recently been extended through the Blue Mountains to reach Lithgow, 90 miles to the west, and Gosford, 50 miles north. Stainless steel car sets provide a fast, comfortable service for interurban passengers. In Western Australia, the state railways have designed a special interurban train, the Australind, to run between the city of Perth and Bunbury, 115 miles to the south. Another interurban express is Victoria's Gippslander, running daily from Melbourne through the Latrobe Valley to Bairnsdale, 170 miles away. A recent achievement in Victorian Railways engineering is the Harris electric train set, specially designed for Melbourne suburban passenger service. Like Victoria, every state has new rail progress to report. At Mount Isa in Queensland, there are very rich deposits of copper, silver, zinc and lead. Plans are in hand to expand production to 14,000 tons of ore daily. This expansion calls for the reconstruction of the 750 miles of railway between Mount Isa and the coast. The use of long lengths of welded rail has been common since the 1930s. Rail welding is done by the thermit and the flash butt processes. In South Australia, whole sections of track, including sleepers, are prefabricated and then transported to the job on special wagons. Over 4,000 miles of welded track have been laid on the Australian railways in lengths up to 360 feet. Before the new line can be laid at Mount Isa, the old rails have to be ripped out. The old sleepers are uprooted by dragging a heavy sledge along under them. When the new sleepers are in place, the new lengths of rail are fastened mechanically. Ballasting of the track follows straightway, a highly mechanized process. Once the hoppers have dropped their load, the grader levels off the ballast. The 750 miles of track will cost about £30 million, a long-term investment in Australia's future. It will be paid for many times over as increasing supplies of mineral ore pour into the refinery at the port of Townsville on the way to the world's markets. Another national investment costing £12 million is already paying for itself. The new 189-mile standard gauge line from Albury on the Victorian border through to Melbourne. For 80 years, passengers travelling from New South Wales to Victoria had to change trains in the early hours of the morning at Albury. Now they cruise through with style, speed and comfort. The time has arrived when Australian railways are winning back passengers and freight with new services. 2 new 14-car expresses costing £1 million each have been put into service on the Sydney-Melbourne run. With a top speed of 80 miles per hour, they have brought streamlining to the schedules and luxury to the passengers. A new chapter in interstate transport has begun, with trains running on one unbroken gauge from Brisbane to Sydney and Sydney to Melbourne. In Western Australia, an even greater standard gauge project is taking shape. The surveying of a new 420-mile line that will link Kalgoorlie to Perth and carry iron ore from Coolia Nobbing to a new iron and steel works to be built on the coast at Kwinana. This £41 million line will halve the running time from Kalgoorlie to Perth. As ore production increases at Coolia Nobbing, it will carry 3 times as much freight. With over 2,000 miles of new permanent way being planned and built, the day is approaching when one long standard rail will reach across the continent from coast to coast. A great national channel of steel bearing a swelling tide of traffic that will carry Australia to greater prosperity and progress.
My name is Jack Sparks, and I joined the railways in 1937, and I was a fireman, a driver and a loco inspector on the engine that's been restored here today where I am at the Hunter Valley Training Company, and I'm with the apprentices who are restoring this locomotive, and it's my pleasure to be here to be with 3801 to see it being restored back to what it was in 1943. I'll be in the front row when you people have finished building it.
Yeah.
And let me say what a wonderful job you're doing with it.
Why do you think people are so attracted to steam trains and that?
A steam engine or a steam locomotive, it doesn't matter what it is connected with steam. It wouldn't matter whether it was a steamroller out in the street rolling the road down, or whether you wouldn't remember this, but we used to have trucks that used to haul around, that used to be done by steam. And there's a fascination about steam in this respect, that it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, or where you are, if there's anything that's connected with steam, you will turn around and look at it. It's something that becomes alive. In 1949, I was appointed a driver, and I got a call to go to the office that the driver of 3801, as it turned out, had taken ill. He was a Goulburn driver, and he was on the Melbourne Limited Express. And I was going to be the driver. I'd only just been appointed driver, so you can imagine how proud I was. Just imagine this. All the buttons flew off my shirt. And anyhow, that seems funny to say, but that's how proud I was. Now, to sit on that locomotive on number 1 platform at Sydney Station at 8 p.m. at night, and you're looking down the train and you see all the people saying their goodbyes and one thing and another. They get into the train, close the door, go to their sleepers, have a cup of coffee, whatever, and to open up that throttle on that 38 class, just to open it up and to feel the immense surge of power, something alive. Now, on a diesel or electric engine, you just go like that with a lever and it takes off. But with a steam locomotive, it's just a matter of open that throttle and you feel the surge of power come up underneath you and you gradually take off. So you start to move. And an immense feeling.
How will you feel to do it again?
Oh, won't it be great if I get the opportunity. We want to see it go into the year, what?
2000.
2000?
2000, yeah.
What a time that'll be, to have 3801 running around in the year 2000. This is one of the cylinders of engine 3801, where a lot of the action takes place when you're on the track. But now, let's go into the film of A Steam Train Passes, a film of which I had a lot of involvement with when it was made in 1974.
In a year, the New South Wales Railways carry 225 million passengers, run 45 million miles, and haul 18 million tons or so of goods. In these great workshops at Everleigh, Sydney, they make everything, up to and including the newest 38 class locomotive. The 38 class boiler is lowered onto the chassis frame, and that great frame casting is the only part of the engine not made here. The rest is all Australian. When the big new 38 comes out of the workshop, well, it's enough to make any boy want to be an engine driver. Any stable can be proud of an iron horse like this big streamlined steed of the railroads. Pulling out of Central, the 38 is a grand sight. These locos are capable of 85 miles an hour, but 70 is the top track speed permissible. Soaring into the night, and singly capable of pulling the longest express train, proud product of Australian engineers and artisans.